Up here at the very top we have the occiput bone, C1 right here, and C2. These are the suboccipital muscles. They get very tight, and they're going to pull that head into extension. And they're going to control the rest of the posture. This is where I feel a lot of adhesions in a lot of people. So if you're having trouble with the foundation training, you might need to start here to fix it.
So in the last few videos we talked about foundation and getting your foundation strong, and how the best thing you can do is learning how to walk properly and just move more functionally throughout your day. There are areas in our spines that can lock us up and keep us from having good posture. So we're going to talk about suboccipital adhesions, which I see in a lot of people. I can hit my hands on a lot of people's necks and I feel a lot of rigidity up at the top, right at the base of the occiput, C1 to C2. What we're talking about is these adhesions are actually these tight muscles that have become what we call hypertonic. They're very shortened and they're really controlling emotion. What these do is they tilt the head back. And I'll see a lot of people, even when they're doing the foundation training exercises, is that this head will tilt back when they do it. So as they're lengthening, maybe they got good foundational strength, but they'll see that head is coming up. So it's giving them some extra room so they can get deeper through the stretch. So you really want to watch and make sure that chin is in there when you're doing those other exercises. And if you have a continual problem with that, this is the video for you, because we're going to talk about how to loosen that up, and this might be some good stuff to do before you get into foundation training to help you get that better posture. So we're going to talk about ADLs. So ADLs are activities of daily living. Be careful when you're hinging at the hips, picking up objects, just interacting in your daily life, that the neck isn't bowing back, going into what we call extension. You want to keep that length, and you want to feel these muscles really work. As the chest comes up, the shoulders will drop, and the neck will engage. You'll feel that, and you should feel some restriction. And we're going to go over an exercise called the bumblebee, which will help you feel some of that. As you come back here, you'll feel that underneath that occiput bone, all that rigidity, and we'll show you that one. It's a good stretch. We're also going to show you how to foam roll this area.
Okay, we're going to take a quick look here at Microdrawing. We got C1 here, C2, C3, C4. Wrote those four down because that's where levator scapulae attaches. Well, I'll feel, and what a lot of chiropractors will feel in the neck, it's a lot of rigidity up at the top. As soon as I get C5, C6, there's like this gushy hinge, because that's where a lot of people hinge in the neck, is at C5, because you got that extension pulling from levator scap, pulling the head back. It's hinging here. Instead, it should be having more movement up top than it does. So we got a lot of restriction up at the top and more motion happening in the mid-neck, and that's a problem. And you'll see that when people do their exercises, it'll move there. And that reflects down in other areas of the body. And we see this here with these little dashes. So dashes indicates the areas of immobility. Too much extension, locked in extension there, opposite locked in flexion, sacrum locked in flexion. So you got lots of swelling in the other areas. You'll feel swelling in the middle portion here, middle portion here, and a lot of people get that mid back right in the middle pain. Why is that? Is that the problem area? Not necessarily. It's where the restriction is. Chiropractors know exactly what I'm talking about, because these are the areas they feel a lot of restriction on. Occipital, C1, C2, right at the VP, the T1, T2 area. We got the T11 area, thoracic lumbar junction area. And we got the sacroiliac joints, especially lower sacral joints. Very tough to move sometimes. And then we get the distortions of the curves surrounding that. Flattening in the lumbar or forward pelvic sway, it all comes back to the neck. So if the neck's off, everything else is going to have trouble. And then we see like tightening the hamstrings, it all can come from that. You know, a lot of our foundation is important, but if our head's not right, you know, so you could want to wrestle somebody, how do you control them? It's with the head. If you got it by the head, you can control them. Not saying all problems start there, but it's definitely something to check out, and you'll feel this right away doing a lot of these, especially the first exercise when you go over. So remember, suboccipital muscles, force neck extension. And we also got levator scap and the upper traps. The upper trap muscles cover all this tissue right up here, and they attach to the skull. I'm working on a lot of people's skulls sometimes, and they're like, what are you doing? What's up there? That's all that muscle attachment from the upper traps. You can feel that's where a lot of headaches come from too. Okay. All right, so I use a pool noodle here, and that's right on that thoracolumbar junction we were talking about, the T11 areas where you want that kind of not deep in the curve of the spine, the lower back, but kind of right where it transitions. You'll feel it. It's really painful, and that's that area of restriction we talk about when you want to feel when you're standing. The next thing we're going to do is just bringing some tension up. So we got the cervical orthosis here. You can get that online. Just type in cervical orthosis. They're pretty cheap. You're looking at maybe 20 bucks. This one was a little more expensive because I got it from Chiropractic Biophysics. So that's right in that C1 area, C2 area, generally just right below the occiput is where you want it to start it. I'll move it around a little bit because I can feel where my restriction is, but anywhere in that area is going to help. You just don't want it in the middle of the neck because you want to see how that I'm flexed. My neck is in that flexion because remember, it's an extension problem. We're trying to get motion C1, C2 area, not in the middle of the neck. If any, you can put this down low, like we talked about C7, T1, T2 area. You can put it down there as well. Definitely not in the middle of the neck. Most people. Some people have other problems here. So check with your chiropractor, check with your physical therapist about this. It might be a little much starting with all this, especially that piece in the middle of the back. You don't want to spend too much time there. So if you want to just try the cervical orthosis off the bat, that's more important. Get that there, and as you can rest here. I would just do about 2 minutes to start, and then build on that. Build 30 seconds a day, 30 seconds a day, add another 30 seconds. Really try to keep that head in. You can do some little shoulder exercises here. The goal is to keep that tension. You don't want to be losing your core, and you don't want to be arching too much in the back to bring your arms up. It's not about how high you can bring your arms, remember. It's about, do you feel this? And you should feel this, and as you feel your core locking down. Another thing is keep your knees squeezed, and you can pump your toes like that with your breaths. Breath in, breath out. Moving on to the foam roller. Now this one's a little tricky, and I wouldn't start with this one, but you can get right on top of those shoulder blades. Upper scap area, that's where that levator scap attaches. Upper traps is there, and you're moving into the neck. Be very careful. Keep your core strong when you're doing this, but it kind of getting, when you're in flexion, it's okay. You don't want to be dipping back into that neck. You don't want to be bowing your neck over. You want to keep that neck locked. So you're using your neck muscles. Don't go too low here. Like if you got scoliosis, just stay in the neck for now. Right up there is where I'd go. And right there, I'm rolling at the suboccipital muscle area. I'm going down a little bit, but definitely not going to the lumbars. No, I wouldn't say never going to lumbars because I do, but for you, don't. Because I don't want to be sued. These are all just suggestions, people. And you can rest there if you want. Kind of works like the cervical orthosis. Not as good. Not as good. I don't like it as much, but it does the trick if you don't want to spend the 20 bucks. Foam rollers, definitely cheaper. I don't know if you got 5 belows, but you can get them at 5 below. I know we're talking about suboccipital adhesions, but I just want to add this little thing here. As you notice on that one picture I did before that the line went this way. This goes in extension right here, the suboccipital. The other area that does that is actually what we call the thoracolumbar junction. So that also will go into extension, and you'll see that a lot of people lean back, put this in extension. That's where a lot of people feel really jammed up. You chiropractors know trying to adjust this area does not always move nice, and it feels really tight in here. So that's another area. That's why be careful, especially with the bands. You'll notice when you come back, that's that extension actually hinging on this area, and that's why it gets so tight. So some muscles just being overworked, really, is what's happening there. And then that weakens other areas when we're constantly doing that. So that's the area you should feel in foundation. That's what I'm trying to teach you guys in a lot of other videos. Feel that restriction? That's what I'm talking about right there. And you can see how it relates because they're both going the same direction into extension. Just a little note there. All right, so one thing we miss here when we're doing any type of band work is, or any type of motion at all, what we don't want is to try to get as far as we can. As you can see how my head shifts forward. There's going to be changes happening in my spine when I do that. So we want to keep everything locked down like we teach in that founder exercise. We really want to keep that pelvis stable and locked. So there's no rotation, there's no other movement. The spine is lengthened and it's very stable, and you're contracting and tighten that core. So you only want to work the shoulders. What we see with a lot of neck things is the shoulders turn in with that head extension. So that's a lot to do with that levator scapulae muscle, which is attaching here, runs up to the neck and the upper traps. We gotta fight against those, get ourselves in good position, and you'll notice, because you want to feel all that tension as you're going out. So with the band, a lot of people just, their whole goal is to try to open up the band, and then they're hurting themselves because they're cheating. So they're hurting themselves because they're trying to go too far with the band. So we're going to go over a YTWL exercise, which is pretty standard for getting more external rotation in the shoulders. So we'll go over that first. But essentially, any band move is going to be good here to open up the shoulders. As long as we have a good stable spine, any move will be helpful in opening up the shoulders. So here is the T. I'll show you from the side. Always start together. Breathe in. Breathe out across the chest. Back to the middle. Now I was supposed to start with Y, so we'll go there. Exhaling on the exertion. Try not to let the spine move at all. No need for speed, go slow. W. Keep the wrist locked at all times. I'll show you again without the band. So I'll show you one more with the band. Keeping the elbows in, raising the chest, popping that chest. Band starts together, chest popped. Elbows never leave the sides. What this is doing is it's really opening up that pec area and allowing the back to activate. Really feel the front of your neck working. If there's tightness, then there's weakness somewhere. You got to remember that. So we're going to show you the butterfly. So always good posture. Take your fingers right in that suboccipital area here. Kind of massage. What you're going to do first is tighten your core a lot. You're going to pull that head down almost like you're on the foam roller. And you can just work here with the fingers. Go along that muscle, loosen up a little bit. Might get a little cramping elsewhere in your spines. And then once we're here, hold that
tissue. Keep the core tight as we come up. This is really important because you don't want to be bending at the spine. You want to keep that spine locked and straightened as you force the neck to straighten. And you open up the shoulders, squeeze. A lot of isometrics here. You see a lot of that shaking that's going on. It's very tough for me. That's what you want to feel. It shouldn't feel easy at all to do it. That's when you're making the changes, when you feel all that shaking. You're breaking things up. So we're stretching and we're opening. We're activating the posterior chain, opening up the shoulders, externally rotating, removing that internal rotation that pulls on our neck so much. That was the bumblebee. Another thing that locks our posture in bad places is maybe one shoulder higher than the other, one hip higher than the other, or rotation, one shoulder more forward, head turned one way. So we want to try to look for movements that are harder on one side compared to the other, so we can strengthen our weaknesses and bring more balance to our body. Just taking a video of yourself standing or doing some of these exercises, you'll see some of your dominances come out. So you have the dominant sides, which might be stronger, tighter muscles, and then the weaker muscles on the opposite side. So we got to bring balance, because if one side of the neck is being pulled on more than the other, that can be tough as well to correct with just straight posture correction. So going back to the band, we'll try some stuff. So one thing you can do is trying to go at a diagonal with the band. So same, tighten, and just going across, opening up the chest this way. So remember how that felt. Keep everything locked, and try the other way. Definitely tougher going that way. So then I want to spend some time strengthening this. Because once I bring more balance to my body, my spine will be stronger and there'll be less torsion forces happening on the spine itself. Again, watch your neck, watch your head, make sure everything's locked down. It should be very tough. It should be tough even without a band. Sometimes I recommend starting without a band to learn to keep your wrist locked. Slight bend in the elbows. It's okay to do some on your stronger side because you do want to keep that balance. I do a couple different variations as well with the band. Sometimes I'll do an elbow bent move. But another thing we have to look at, you'll find lots of different things with the band, but the most important thing is that we're lengthening that spine, especially our neck. The last thing we want is to be doing these with the neck jutting forward. A lot of times, even with foundation training, you'll see that head will kind of go there, and that's not what we want at all. We want that head and the spine to stay in line with everything. And you'll feel much more tension when you do it that way. That suboccipital can control you, so you got to fight against it. You'll know it, you'll feel it when you got it. Another thing is twisting and torsion of the trunk. So what we can do is check both directions and see if one side is tougher for me. So core is tight. We're going to just do a normal T. I'm going to twist, keeping my pelvis straight ahead. It's just the trunk that's moving. Turn to the left, open up that band. Try the right. Pelvis doesn't move with you, stay straight. Just that alone is pretty tough, right? A little harder on the right for me. You might find a big noticeable difference, especially if you have something like scoliosis.
Christmas is on its way, reindeers I can slay. Old Saint Nick do his tricks, presents or cold sticks. Church will make its play, oh, sing those hymns of praise. Happy holidays is what you say, but I feel empty.